Lucas was returning to the castle along with Duftmon, Jessmon, and his partner Gizamon. They had taken out the Digimon that were causing trouble, and Lucas asked when he was going to meet Yggdrasil, though Jessmon said that it wasn't for them to decide, stating that when Yggdrasil calls for them, they will be allowed to go and speak to them. Nodding, he then went back to watching their surroundings go by. Once back in the castle town, they'd returned to the castle where they heard more training going on, with Jessmon saying that it sounded like some of the others were back now. They all went into the courtyard of the castle where the knights usually train, and found a blue dragon man like Digimon with a golden V across their chest, along with a Digimon covered in gold armor fighting one another. Off to the side, there was a Digimon in red and white armor with a cape, sitting, leaning against the wall, with their arms folded, watching their training take place. Duftmon called out to the three, saying that they have a couple of new recruits for the army, at Gonkumon's suggestion, making the three look over, seeing the three-legged Gizamon and his human partner Lucas. Jessmon introduced Lucas and Gizamon to the group, saying that they'd proven themselves helpful with a mission they just completed together. Then introduced the blue one as All Force Vidramon, the gold one as Magnamon, and finally the one in red and white as Dukemon. The knights waved hello, greeting them, and saying that they must be special if Duftmon gives his approval. Lucas says that a lot of Digimon had been calling him a Digidestin for some reason, but he didn't quite know the whole story on that. All he did know was that he was supposed to help in some way. The others nodded in response to hearing what exactly he'd had to say, and told him that the others should be back later on. The knights went back to training together, with Lucas joining in with Gizamon, working on bettering themselves. Our Digidestined had to admit that it was in fact rather fun the way they all trained to better their skills. It's surprising, but these knights were actually able to crack jokes and have fun while training, having themselves a practice tournament for fun. Obviously, Gizamon and Lucas didn't make it far into that little tournament, but that's fine, as a large Digimon clad in armor colored black and gold approached the group, making everyone stop and kneel to this newcomer. Though Lucas was confused, he thought it best to kneel as well. The Digimon then spoke, calling himself Alphamon, and said that he was to bring the human to Lord Yggdrasil. Our Digidestin followed the knight into the castle, looking around at the inner workings of the building as he was being led to a specific room where a large white thing with a red visor for a face was located. They told Alphamon that he may leave them, and the knight nodded and left the room, leaving the two there alone for whatever the floating armor wanted to speak about. Lucas asked if they were the one that the others called Lord Yggdrasil, and the armor spoke, saying that what they see before them is but an avatar, Yggdrasil 7D6. But that was not what they were to be discussing, as they were curious of humans having been entered into the digital world, and saying that two of their servants had been disposed of by other humans like himself. The two that were taken out were called Nightmon and Achillesmon. Yggdrasil spoke before, saying that it appears each Digidestined had chosen a different path to solving the war, and asked what side it was that Lucas belonged to. Answering honestly, Lucas then told the god in front of him that it doesn't matter. He is on the side of the innocent Digimon who simply want the war to be done and over with. Anyone that wants true peace is the one he is allied to. This answer intrigued the host computer, as they hadn't expected that type of response. It was logical to take the side of those caught up in the war who simply want it to be over. Still, that did leave them to wonder and ask, does he choose the knight or the mouse? Lucas then looked confused, since he'd already given his answer, and repeated that the ones that simply want the war to be over and peace to be restored are the ones that he sides with. Had they been capable of nodding, the construct would have done so, and said that they were a strange one. Still, they were helping the knights to end the war, and that that was enough for now. They had arranged for him and his partner Gizamon to stay with Slipmon while they were there, and the knight would be by shortly to collect them before dismissing Lucas and letting him leave. Going outside, Lucas found a centaur-like Digimon walking up on 4 legs in red-colored armor. Walking up to them, he'd asked if they were Slipmon, and the Digimon responded that they were indeed, and they would be staying with him, gesturing for Lucas to follow. The two followed them to where Slipmon lived, finding it to be a rather nice home. They showed them around the place, telling them the schedule of breakfast and dinner. They were usually always out during lunch, so they'd be on their own for when to have that. Lucas remarked that this place was bigger than his school and looked around as Gizamon asked where their room would be, and Slipmon then showed them to their quarters so that they could get some rest after coming back from mission.